This happened a few years ago. I was 32 and a freelance photographer. I needed to escape the chaos of city life, so I found this isolated cabin by a quiet lake. I thought it would be perfect for taking photos and just relaxing. At first, it felt cozy. The air was fresh and the sounds of nature surrounded me. But I've never stopped thinking about what happened that weekend. I set up my gear and walked around the lake. The sun dipped low, painting the sky with orange and purple. As night fell, I got ready to capture the calmness. It was peaceful at first. Then, I heard splashing. It was faint, but it caught my attention. I grabbed my camera and walked toward the water, thinking I might see some fish. But there was nothing. I convinced myself it was just frogs or something, but I felt a weight in the air. Something felt wrong. On the second night, the splashing came back. It was louder this time, mixed with an unsettling laughter. My heart started racing as I stepped outside. I thought maybe I'd discover the source of the noise. As I approached the water, the darkness felt thick. I ran my fingers over the wet ground and found footprints. They were small and led away from the lake. There were no animal tracks nearby, just those strange human-like marks. I felt as if someone was watching me, but I shook the thought away. By the third night, anxiety gnawed at me. The splashing and laughter had returned, closer now, echoing through the woods. I pressed my forehead against the window, breathless, straining to see something in the shadows. Part of me wanted to leave, but another part needed to know what was happening. I picked up my flashlight and swung the door open. As I walked toward the lake, a chill ran down my spine. I kept glancing back, half expecting something to follow me. Then, I heard a voice. It was faint but clear. "Why did you come here?" It seemed to come from the water itself. I froze. I wanted to run back, but my curiosity pushed me forward. My legs felt heavy. I glanced around. Just darkness. The laughter faded, leaving me in silence. I suddenly felt cold, as if a breeze had swept through my very bones. I don't remember how I got back inside, but I locked the door and sat there trembling. I thought about leaving right then. What if I had missed something? Maybe I was losing my grip on reality. The laugh echoed in my mind, and I still could feel the air shift around me. Then I asked, "Why are you here?" I turned around. Nobody was there. I felt my heartbeat in my throat, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't alone anymore. The next morning, I was determined to shake off the night's horrors. The sun peeked through the trees, bringing warmth and light back to the cabin. I left the door locked, trying to convince myself that everything was fine. After breakfast, I grabbed my camera and headed towards the lake. Maybe snapping some photos would distract me from the events of the previous night. As I walked, the air felt different. It was heavier somehow. I took a few shots of the rippling water and vibrant reflections of trees. The sounds of birds chirping seemed too bright. I stilled my breath and focused, hoping to capture a perfect shot that would make me forget. But then I noticed something on the ground. A piece of fabric, caught on a branch just beyond the water's edge. Curious, I walked over. It was a small children's shirt, faded and torn. I looked around, my heart sinking. Where had it come from? The lake felt even more menacing now, its surface darkening with unspoken memories. Instinct told me to leave, but I couldn't do it. I picked up the shirt and examined it closely. That's when I heard the laughter again, faint like a whisper carried by the wind. I turned quickly, looking for the source, but all I saw was the stillness of the lake. I felt my breath quickening. I was not imagining it. Then I heard a splash, more pronounced this time. My heart raced as I swung my camera towards the sound. Nothing. Just the rippling surface. I was on edge, my hands shaking, as I kept scanning the water. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice quivering. There was silence. Just the gentle lapping of water onto the shore. The tension held me still until I sensed movement out of the corner of my eye. I turned, and at the tree line, I saw a figure. A child wearing nothing but a soaked shirt. Just like the one I had found. I had to blink to convince myself I was not seeing things. Just as my mind struggled to comprehend what I was witnessing, the figure vanished behind the trees. Panic surged through me, and in an instant, I was running back to the cabin, clutching the shirt like a lifeline. I fumbled with the lock, my fingers slipping as I fought to close myself inside. I slammed the door shut, pressing my back against it. I could still hear the laughter echoing, now a chorus of voices. Fear pulsed in my veins. I felt trapped, like prey in a hunter's sights. That shirt. What did it mean? Was it a warning? A plea? I glanced out the window and my heart stopped. Just on the edge of the water sat a small boat. It hadn't been there before. I hadn't noticed it during my earlier photos. Now, it rocked gently, and I could see movement inside. Then it hit me. I had to find out who or what was in that boat before it was too late. I crept back toward the door, a mixture of dread and determination surging within me. But as I stepped outside, the skies darkened. Everything felt different, wrong. And then, I heard a voice calling from the water. My own name. I hesitated on the cabin's porch, my breath catching in my throat. The voice echoed again, soft but clear. Come to the water, it beckoned. I could hardly believe it was my name. A chill ran down my spine. I stood frozen, weighing the decision. Every instinct screamed at me to retreat, but another part was desperate for answers. Who was calling me? The boat rocked gently, as if inviting me closer. I couldn't see who or what was inside, but a nagging curiosity pulled me forward. Against my better judgment, I stepped off the porch, my feet crunching on the gravel path. The laughter faded, replaced by an eerie silence, making each footfall louder in my ears. As I approached the water's edge, I scanned for movement. The surface of the lake was dark, reflecting the quickly gathering clouds above. Anxiety twisted in my stomach, yet I couldn't turn back. I was already too far gone. That was when I noticed the boat again. It seemed to have drifted closer to shore. I could make out draped figures inside, but the shadows kept their faces concealed. My heart raced as I called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" The only reply was the creaking of the boat and the distant rustle of leaves. I took another cautious step forward, and suddenly a splash erupted in front of me. I jumped back, camera ready, my heart pounding against my ribcage. Just then, a small hand emerged from the water, skeins of shimmering droplets falling from fingertips. Panic surged anew. The earlier laughter echoed back to me full of childish glee. It was sickening. "Come play." The child's voice was sweet, and yet it shook me to the core. "We're waiting." I looked around frantically, realizing this wasn't just one child. There were at least 3 pairs of eyes, peering from the shadows of the boat, fixated on me. And there was something about those eyes. Empty. An urge to flee overwhelmed me, and I surprised myself by turning to run. I sprinted back toward the cabin, the laughter growing louder behind me. "Don't leave!" they cried out, voices melding into a haunting melody. I burst through the door, slamming it shut and locking it tight. My heart felt like it could burst, fueled by a combination of fear and disbelief. My grip tightened around the fabric of the shirt I had found earlier. I wasn't safe anywhere. To calm myself, I looked for something, anything, that could make sense of what I just saw. Instead, I found the floorboards creaking beneath me. Heart in my throat, I approached the window to peer outside, hoping to catch a glimpse of the lake. But then I froze. Jaw slack as I saw 4 shadowy figures standing by the water, their heads tilted in unison. With trembling hands, I grabbed my camera again. A loud bang rang through the cabin, as if something heavy had crashed against the door. My breath hitched. I didn't want to find out what was out there. I stepped back from the window, scanning the room for an escape route. Then I noticed it, a small trapdoor beneath the kitchen table. It looked forgotten, as if it hadn't been opened in years. I had no choice. I had to know what was waiting outside. As I reached down to open it, I noticed something glittering on the floor by the door. It was the same fabric, the shirt, now wrapped around a small bone. My stomach twisted. There was no escaping this nightmare. I had to find out what it all meant, even if it was the last thing I did. I knelt beside the trapdoor, my fingers trembling as I brushed away the dust that had settled atop it. A soft thud came from the door behind me, a reminder I wasn't alone in this cabin. I paused, my heart thudding in my chest, feeling the weight of the air around me. What was happening? Where had those voices come from? I pulled on the rusted latch, and it creaked open, revealing a narrow passageway that led into darkness. I glanced back at the door, the shadows waiting just beyond it, and made my choice. I hadn't come this far to turn back now. With a quick breath, I climbed down, the musty scent of damp earth filling my lungs. I shuffled my feet along the uneven ground, trying to get my bearings in the dark. My camera's flash was my only guide. I clicked it on, revealing a small underground room filled with old crates and remnants of another time. It was cluttered but oddly untouched. My eyes caught something glinting in the corner. I moved closer, curiosity pulling me in. It was a small mirror, cracked but still shiny. I lifted it to my face, and for a moment, I didn't recognize the figure staring back at me. My own eyes, wide with fear, were met by something else within the reflection. Something shifted behind me, and I swung around, my heart sinking. Nothing caught my gaze, just a heavy silence. I turned back to the mirror, but instead of my reflection, I saw the silhouettes of children, their eyes wide and hollow, grinning at me from the shadows. Panic surged again, and I dropped the mirror. It shattered with a deafening crack. I heard the laughter echo in the small space, a cacophony filling my ears. "Playtime!" An eerily high-pitched voice called out. I stumbled backward, my skin crawling with dread. What did they want from me? I pressed my back against the wall, trying to steady my breath. But the laughter grew stronger, vibrating through the walls. "Join us!" I frantically scanned the room for a way out, and spotted a ladder leading to another trapdoor above. Without thinking, I lunged for it. I climbed quickly as the laughter crescendoed around me, an ominous chant of children's voices that surged into a frenzy. I reached the trap's door and pushed it open, gasping as light flooded in. I clambered out, nearly losing my balance. As I regained my footing, I looked around. I was back in the cabin, but everything was different. The atmosphere felt heavier, charged. The wooden walls seemed to breathe, and the door had swung open as if someone had invited an unwelcome guest inside. Then I heard it again. Soft giggles, echoing across the water. A chill ran down my spine. They were waiting for me. I turned towards the door but stopped short. One of the shadowy figures had stepped into the light. It was a girl, her small frame soaked and glistening like the water behind her. She smiled, revealing teeth too white and too sharp for someone so young. "Come play with us," she said quietly, tilting her head. My heart raced again, pounding painfully against my chest. I was caught. I had to decide, play or flee. But deep down, I knew either choice might lead to the same end. Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed from the kitchen. Something had fallen. My breath caught as terror gripped me anew. I had to get out. I turned to run, but a voice hushed me. "Don't run. We're not finished with you yet." I bolted toward the nearest window, ready to force it open. But a cold hand gripped my wrist tightly. I gasped and spun around. The girl stood there, her eyes glimmering with malice. A knot of fear twisted in my stomach as I felt her presence like a weight on my chest. "We can play a game," she declared, her smile widening. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a predator. "It's more fun if you stay." I shook my head, desperately trying to pull away, but her grip only tightened. "You're scared," she cooed. "That makes it better." In a surge of adrenaline, I managed to jerk my arm free. I dashed for the doorway, but as I reached it, the heavy door slammed shut with a bang that vibrated through the room. My heart raced as I pressed my back against the wood. "Let me out," I shouted, panic climbing in my throat. "Not yet," came a whisper, and I froze. It wasn't just her. I felt eyes on me from every corner of the cabin, the children's shadows swirling with malicious glee. Without thinking, I turned back to the room. A flicker of movement caught my eye. One of the crates had shifted, and I realized it was no longer just a pile of forgotten things. There were small, warped shapes inside. I leaned closer, my stomach churning as I pulled open the lid. Inside, I found twisted dolls with wide, empty eyes and tattered clothes. Their mouths were sewn shut with thick black thread. I stumbled back, a wave of nausea hitting me. "Playtime requires toys," the girl said, her voice dripping with delight. "We always need more friends." Every instinct screamed at me to escape. I looked for another way out. The kitchen, the back of the cabin, anything. I stepped away from the door, but the floorboards creaked beneath my feet. Every sound seemed to amplify, and the children's laughter echoed louder in response. "Where are you going?" the girl asked, her tone oddly playful now. "The game's not finished." I caught sight of the kitchen, the dim light flickering ominously. What if I could find something in there? I dashed toward it, praying for a chance to escape. As I crossed the threshold, I almost slipped on something wet. Glaring down, I saw a trail of dark liquid leading toward the fridge. My hands trembled as I wiped my palms on my jeans, my mind racing. But there was no time to think. The kitchen had an old table against the wall, and I scrambled underneath it, hoping to catch my breath. I needed clarity in the madness surrounding me. Then I heard it again. Soft giggles mixed with whispers. "Found you." Just as I peered out, the fridge swung open with a creak, revealing nothing but darkness inside. I shuddered, feeling a chill crawl up my spine. "Come play in the dark," the girl urged, her fingers tapping softly against the edge of the table. "It's more fun with friends." My heart sank as I realized the fridge wasn't empty. It was a void, a promise of things I couldn't even begin to comprehend. That's when I saw it. A shadow, deeper than the rest, creeping in from the corner of the kitchen. My mouth went dry. The girl's smile evaporated as her expression shifted to something closer to hunger. Hide and seek starts now. My breath caught. I had to make a choice. Stay unseen or risk stepping into their world of horrors. Then everything went dark. I jolted awake, the darkness around me thick and suffocating. I blinked rapidly, trying to remember where I was. The kitchen? The cabin had transformed into an abyss, swallowing the light. It felt wrong. The air was heavy, thick like syrup, making each breath a labor. I instinctively crawled further underneath the table, the wood scratching against my arms. If I couldn't see them, maybe they couldn't see me. Then came the laughter again, soft, sickening laughter. It echoed through the dimness, sending chills down my spine. "Where are you?" the girl's voice called out, playful yet menacing. "We're hiding too. You'll love it when we find you." "Stop," I whispered, terrified. I didn't know if I was talking to her or to myself. I pressed my back against the cold floor, feeling the vibrations of my racing heart. I strained to listen, heart pounding louder than the whispers around me. The laughter swirled around the kitchen, bouncing against the walls. Shadows wriggled in the corners, shifting just beyond my line of sight. Suddenly, the fridge door creaked open again. I didn't want to look, but the strange compulsion forced my gaze toward it. The void was waiting, beckoning me to join it. "Come on, it'll be fun." The voice fell almost to a whisper like honey dripping from a sticky spoon. "You can play with us forever." No, I thought. I couldn't be trapped. I needed to find a way out. I scanned the kitchen for anything I could use. A knife? A piece of wood? But the shadows kept moving closer, pressing against me like a wall. That's when I remembered the back door. I crawled out from under the table, feeling the tug of otherworldly eyes boring into me. I wasn't here for their game. I was here to escape. I moved silently until I reached the door, each creak of the floor sending panic racing through me. "Where are you going?" came the girl's taunting voice. "The game just started." I yanked the handle. Locked. My heart sank. "Playtime can't end before everyone is found," she said sweetly, her laughter swirling into something more sinister. Fumbling in my pocket, I pulled out my phone. Its screen lit up like a small sun in the stifling gloom. I pressed the button. The light cut through the shadows, revealing faces, a crowd of them watching me from beyond the kitchen. My stomach twisted in horror. Dolls, but alive. Hollow eyes filled with darkness stared back at me. They were waiting. All of them. I had to move. I turned without thinking, and before I knew it, I was racing for the back door. My hand grasped the doorknob, fear driving me. The laughter ramped up behind me, shrill and wild. Just as I turned the knob, the shadows lunged. Cold fingers brushed my back, icy as death. With a twist of the handle, the door swung open and I stumbled out into the night air, but not without feeling their grip on me. Then I froze. The world outside wasn't what I expected. It was a vast stretch of water, reflecting the moonlight like shards of glass. But it was wrong. The lake was a mirror, and I saw the girl's face in it, smiling wickedly, her eyes dark and full of promise. "What have you found?" she echoed, her voice blending with the night. I turned back toward the cabin, heart racing, breath coming in quick bursts. The whispers grew quieter, but I knew they were still there, waiting. This wasn't over. I took a step back, my eyes locked on the reflection. That's when everything shifted again. The darkness shivered and I realized someone was watching me from the water. I wasn't alone, not by a long shot. I stumbled backward, my mind racing. The reflections in the lake twisted and warped, revealing not just the girl, but shadows emerging from the depths. Their shapes were indistinct, tall and lean, moving with an unnatural grace. "Join us," they whispered, their voices a chorus of temptation that wrapped around me like a ribbon. I wanted to run, but my legs felt frozen in place. I was trapped between the cabin and the lake, caught in their web of laughter and chilling enticement. I scanned the shore, looking for anything that could help me escape. The rocks appeared jagged like teeth, and I thought about the oars from the old rowboat still tethered beyond the water. It was a dangerous venture, but I couldn't stay here, not under the stare of those faceless figures. With a surge of courage, I turned and dashed along the edge of the lake toward the rowboat. The laughter followed me like a storm, twisting the air around me. "You can't escape," the girl sang, her laughter blending into a cacophony of echoes. "Everyone belongs to the lake." The muddy ground squelched beneath my feet, making each step feel like wading through tar. I reached the boat, heart pounding, and fumbled to untie it. Just as I released the last line, the water rippled violently, sending waves crashing against the shore. My hands trembled, but I didn't hesitate. I jumped in. As I settled into the seat and grabbed the oars, I heard a splash behind me. Panic surged as I glanced over my shoulder. One of the figures had leapt from the water, its elongated limbs dragging against the surface, creating a trail of bubbles. My blood ran cold. I started to row, the oars splashing into the lake with urgency. But the water felt different, thicker, almost alive. It pushed back against me, as if trying to pull me under. Just as I realized I wouldn't be able to row fast enough, the figure lunged, its ghastly face above the water, twisted and grinning with hollow eyes. I screamed, dropping an oar. It splashed into the murky depths, disappearing as if the lake had swallowed it whole. I forced myself to keep rowing with the remaining oar, my breaths turning hectic. Then I saw something ahead, a small dock jutting out into the water. If I could reach it, maybe I could climb out and run. I veered the boat toward the dock, willing my arms to move faster. But the figure surged forward, rising from the lake like a nightmare unleashed. It reached for me, fingers clawing at the air, and I screamed again, a raw sound that cut through the night. The wooden dock loomed closer, but my fear threatened to drown me. Finally, I reached the dock, slamming the boat against it. I leaped out, clawing up the weathered planks just as the figure's cold fingers grazed my ankle. I kicked it away, feeling triumphant for a split second as I made it onto the solid wood. Breathless, I glanced back at the lake. The figures were retreating, slipping back into the depths, but the girl's laughter echoed on the breeze. "You can't run forever," she taunted, her voice fading, but still trailing behind me, mingling with the rustle of the trees. I collapsed on the dock, heart hammering, desperation crashing over me like the waves. I had escaped, but at what cost? Their laughter still filled the air, and I realized the night wasn't done with me yet. That's when I heard it. A soft splashing sound coming from the water again. My heart sank as I turned back. There was a new form rising. Someone wasn't finished with me at all. I squinted into the darkness, barely able to make out the shape that emerged from the murky water. It was taller than the others, its form more defined. A shimmer caught the pale moonlight and my stomach twisted in dread. I crouched low, suddenly wishing I had stayed in the cabin. "What do you want?" I shouted, my voice shaking. The figure paused, tilting its head as if considering my question. I half hoped it would turn back, but it continued to rise, water dripping from its body like a curtain of shadows. "Your fear feeds us," it called out, its voice like gravel scraping against stone. I felt trapped again, the lake's edge no longer a safe space. I took a step back, torn between wanting to flee and needing to know what it meant. "Leave me alone," I yelled, but my defiance wavered under its unwavering gaze. Coldness crept into every crevice of my heart as it stepped closer to the dock, water swirling around its feet. The laughter returned, echoing from the depths. "You're one of us now," whispered another voice, this one softer, almost seductive. I pressed my back against the dock, desperately searching for a way out. There was nowhere to run. The figure raised a hand, and with it came the essence of the lake. A thick mist rising around me, wrapping around my mind, throwing shadows over my thoughts. I struggled to focus, aware that the deeper I sank into that fog, the more I could feel myself slipping away. I caught sight of something small floating just beyond the dock, half submerged in the water. A tiny silver locket glinted under the surface, catching my attention. It seemed ordinary, but something about it felt heavy with meaning. Was it a sign? A warning? Or something worse? The figure turned its head slowly, noticing my distraction. "Don't you want to join them?" it beckoned, extending an elongated finger toward the locket. "It belongs to a friend. She was lost to the lake, just as you will be if you don't accept our invitation." It felt unthinkable, but a strange urge washed over me. Maybe the lake could offer something, freedom from fear, escape from the madness closing in. I fought against it, shaking my head, trying to clear my thoughts. "I'll never join you," I shouted defiantly. The words felt weak, trembling on my lips, but I forced them out. The figure flinched, as if my refusal had really struck it. The mist hesitated. "Then we'll take you by force," it snarled, and I sensed the other figures stirring in the shadows below the water, ready to rise again. Suddenly the splashes grew louder, and I realized they were coming from multiple directions. Panic surged anew. I turned and sprinted along the dock, away from the creeping shadows. My heart pounded a frantic rhythm. Run, just run. That's when I felt the dock shift beneath my feet. The wooden planks creaked ominously as if the lake was reaching for me, angry and hungry. Then everything went dark. I came to my senses on the cold, hard ground. For a fleeting moment I didn't know where I was. The smell of damp earth mixed with the crisp night air hit me. I blinked, my vision blurred by the darkness. I pushed myself up, heart racing. Had I actually fallen? I looked around. The dock was behind me, but it felt like a dream, a mirage almost. The lake was eerily calm, but the shadows on the surface danced like something alive. I could hear the soft lapping of the water against the shore, but there was no sign of the figures. Maybe they had gone back into the depths. I didn't stop to think. I stood and ran, the chill cutting through me. I raced toward the woods, branches clawing at my arms as I shoved through the underbrush. Each snap of a twig echoed in the night, a reminder that I was not alone. I didn't look back. Desperation fueled my movements. Every step was taken with purpose, fueled by panic. I couldn't let them catch me, I wouldn't let them drag me under. When I finally reached the edge of the trees, I stopped to catch my breath. The air was thick with fog, wrapping around my legs and making every sound feel muffled. I could barely see a few feet ahead, but something made me keep moving. There was a path just ahead, faint but visible under the moon's light. I hesitated for just a moment, glancing back at the woods where I had run from. Nothing stirred, but that didn't settle my nerves. I stepped onto the path, my heart racing again as I recalled the locket. That silver thing. It could have meant something. It had been a part of someone lost. What if I was drawn back to that moment? The thought sent chills down my spine. I quickened my pace, gripping the rough bark of the trees for balance. Then, Through the fog, a shape emerged. A figure stood at the side of the path. My pulse quickened again. I stumbled back and nearly slipped. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling. I peered into the gloom, fear pooling in my stomach. Slowly the figure stepped into the dim light. It was a girl, her clothes soaking wet, hair soaking and sticking to her face. She looked familiar. Panic and confusion swirled in my chest like a storm. "What do you want?" She raised her hand, and my breath caught in my throat. It was the locket. She held it tightly between her fingers. "You shouldn't have ignored us," she said softly, her voice eerily calm. "What do you mean?" I stepped back, knowing somehow she belonged to the same darkness I had just tried to escape. "The lake needs you," she insisted, her eyes glinting with something dark and unfathomable. "You can't run. You're already part of us." My heart dropped. I had thought I was free. The fog around me thickened, wrapping around my mind again. The woods felt alive, shadows moving where they shouldn't. Suddenly, a rumble shook the ground beneath me and I turned to run, but I wasn't quick enough. Something cold grabbed me from behind. And that's when I realized I hadn't escaped at all. I woke up again, this time tangled in shadows. The air felt heavy, weighed down by an oppressive silence. My heart raced as I scrambled to my feet, the remnants of a surreal dream barely coalescing into memory. I was outside, but the world around me was entirely changed. The familiar woods had morphed into an otherworldly landscape, one swathed in fog and shrouded in dim light. "Where am I?" I murmured, fear crawling into every crevice of my mind. I took a cautious step forward, peering into the swirling mist. Shapes flickered at the edges of my vision. Could they be the figures from the lake, or was it just my imagination playing tricks on me? "You shouldn't have come back." A voice curled out from the shadows, chilling me to the bone. It was soft, yet laced with an underlying menace. I spun around, but the dense fog obscured any potential threat. "They were waiting for you," the voice continued, echoing around me. "The lake always wants more." I couldn't breathe. The memories surged. The girl with the sharp smile, the beckoning shadows. Had I really escaped? Or was this merely another layer of their game? Panicking, I dashed forward, not knowing where I was headed but unwilling to wait for whatever lurked behind me. "Help!" I called out, desperation spilling forth. The call was met with an eerie silence. No one responded. It wasn't long before I stumbled into a clearing. The moon hung high above, casting a weak silver glow that barely penetrated the thick fog. But as I turned to survey my surroundings, my breath hitched. There, in the center of the clearing, stood a wooden pier stretching into the mist, exactly like the dock from before. "What is going on?" I thought, stepping cautiously toward it. "Come play," echoed the girl's voice. But this time there were more shadows, more whispers swirling around, echoing each syllable until it sounded like a chant. In the distance, figures began to coalesce from the mist. Some were much shorter than the others, giggling, their childish laughter almost sweet. Yet their eyes remained empty, devoid of any innocence. "Join us," they sang, repeating the words hauntingly, but with a warmth that twisted every instinct in me to run. As I turned to flee, a thick fog enveloped me again. My surroundings melted into darkness. I felt the grasp of icy hands on my wrists. I gasped, a breath rattling through me as the world around shifted, twisting in kaleidoscopic motion before plunging me into darkness once more. Then, a sudden light sparked, and I found myself back at the cabin, disoriented but alive, the thumping of my heart echoing through my ears. My hands were trembling as I looked around, the photos on the walls in disarray and the air thick with an uneasy presence. Just then, a bowling sound erupted from behind the door. It swung open to reveal nothing but the emptiness of twilight. "Why did you return?" The girl's voice slipped into my mind from nowhere and everywhere, insanity creeping back in. "I don't know. I want to leave," I shouted, but no response echoed back. The air hung heavy with dread, shadows collecting at the edges of my vision. Suddenly, I remembered the locket, the small silver charm and what it could mean. Had it belonged to another lost soul, one who became part of the lake's twisted community? I needed to find it, I snapped around, driven by the urgency propelling me forward. With pounding footsteps, I dashed back towards the lake, desperate to disentangle from the chains clamping down on me. The woods enveloped me again, as I sprinted towards the water's edge. The lake shimmered in the moonlight, mocking me with its stillness. I felt an invisible tug dragging me closer, beckoning until I could barely resist. So much was at stake, but as I reached the shore, the water rippled and shadows danced in its depths. "You can't leave," came the haunting chorus, a whispering symphony of lost souls entwined in laughter and despair. I kneeled at the water's edge, looking into the sleek surface, searching for the locket, that glimmering glint of hope. "Show me," I whispered, as beneath the surface, I thought I saw movement, shapes swirling, tugging at the edges of my sanity. Was the locket even there? Perhaps the lake was a reflection itself, my fears taking form, the echoes of madness revealed. Maybe I had played their game after all, drawn in by my own curiosity. It all came rushing back, the laughter, the figures, an endless loop of wanting and being wanted. I felt fingers slipping through the water's surface just under my reach, and panic rushed through me as the darkness threatened to drag me under. I pulled back, instinct over reason, and gasped. "I won't be one of you," I shouted defiantly, yet my thoughts flashed to the lost children. They were souls merely seeking connection, and I might have been all but that, a seeker of solace in a world drained of color. "This game is far from over," the voices whispered, a foreboding chant rising around me. I stood, shook with energy from the lake's deep enfolding grip, yearning for answers but understanding I may never have them. I still felt their presence, neither fully tangible nor completely ethereal. As I turned to leave, one last whisper curled around me. "Remember us." I ran through the trees, the haunting laughter trailing behind me like a ghost. I could still feel their eyes, unblinking, unable to fully vacate my thoughts. I never looked back, knowing they were still there, lingering somewhere between the shadows and the lake. A part of me now as much as I was a part of their unending story. Weeks passed since that terrifying weekend. I moved to a different city, trying to drown out the echoes of that night. I often dreamt of the lake, the figures and their laughter, wondering if I might return someday. Would I be a part of it all again? Or was I free? But in the quiet moments just before sleep claimed me, I still heard them calling, their voices soft and beckoning, inseparable from my own. I was left with uncertainty, my reality forever changed by the enigma of that cursed lake.